Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. You know, fall is right around the corner and it's one of my favorite times of the year. I love the shadows. I especially love the colors. All those fall shades of, golds and greens and oranges and reds. Oh, they're all such warm colors. And I've used those to create the fall scrapbook that we're going to look at today. Now, if you look at mine, you can see starting at this edge that the binding is simply one that I've bound with the bird leg bands, which we've talked about before. I've used die cuts, just pumpkin die cuts to decorate the middle of the cover. And then when I open this up, this flap, there's a little magnet here. I kind of like it. The magnet is what closes it shut, holds it closed. But what's kind of fun is by having the magnet be black and having it sit on a piece of black pattern paper, I just took a white pen to go back over the magnet itself. You still have plenty of magnet exposed. It still works and holds it all shut, but it really makes it disappear from this page, which is pretty cool. And then inside, if you look inside, you can see I created sort of a formula that's going to make it quick to put this scrapbook together. I've only done the first few pages, but when I have a vertical photo, I have a band at the top with this checker. And then I've used, from my HSN collection, I've used the stencil and the white pen in order to create the title. And then if you go to the next page, whenever there's an horizontal photo, that I've used by placing the colored bands on the sides and then the check border. So I'll go back to the front. You can see if I have vertical placement, I'm going to have the band at the top. If I have horizontal placement, I'm going to have the bands on the sides, and the bands can be in the middles. And you don't have to be that regimented. You can just wing it if you want to, but if you want it to go quick, I've discovered that when you create a formula for all those inside pages, it really does help make it go fast. Now, I started with the back. This is going to be the back cover, and the dimensions for this, it's 8.5 inches wide. The length was 12 inches long, and what I did is I came in from this binding edge. I came in 9 inches in order to make my first score line. Then I went 1/2 inch and have a second score line. Now, how that means that I've got what ends up being 1/2 inch to play with here in terms of how many pages I want to put, how thick the photos or embellishments are going to be. This will vary for you based on how thick you want your scrapbook to be. How many pages inside. You might make it thicker, you might make it thinner. But that is going to create the back page, as well as this is going to wrap around and be part of the front page. Now, in order to create, I think next we'll talk about the inside pages, because it's handy to do while I have this open. That's what I did when I made the scrapbook. Remember, this dimension is 8.5, and I came in 9 inches to the first score line. So all the interior pages will be those dimensions, 8.5 by 9. Here I've cut one out of copy paper, and I'm going to show you how I figured out where to place these holes. What I did was I cut one that matches the inside pages, which once again is 8.5 by 9. I've just folded it in half. The halfway point, this is going to be the first punched hole, right exactly in the middle. So I came in 1/2 inch from this edge and punched my first hole. Then I came, if you look at the top, I came down 1.25 inches and punched the next hole. And I came up 1.25 inches from the bottom to punch the third hole. And that way you have a really balanced look to where you have those holes punched. This then becomes the guide, and I'll use this to punch all the pages. I used it to go ahead and to punch to, with pencil mark and then punch this back cover. And I've used it to create all of these interior pages that are going to sit like so. And then I'm going to use it in order to do the front cover. And let's talk about the front cover. I'll bring up all these pieces. What I did first is I started with a pattern paper, and I wanted to keep sort of the fall thing going. So I have this damask style paper that I just cut a band of it. Now you're going to put more than this, but this is enough to hold it down. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this so that it lines up with the sides and the top. Place the band down. I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to repunch this hole. However, I'm not going to stop and do it now. I think I'll add the rest of the embellishments. Then I've created this checkered paper that's going to sit. And remember I said I didn't put solid adhesive. However, it's very, very warm and uncommonly humid today in my studio, so all my paper's wanting to curl. So I'm going to go back and add some more adhesive on these edges, just so that when I tuck together this last section, it's not wanting to flip on me so much. Now I'm going to add this layer, which is going to be the next band of color, and I'll just start with an edge and go ahead until I get to the end, and then I'll trim off any excess. And the final layer that I created was just using the same, I wanted to pull in, this is the same paper as is wrapping around from the back cover. And you're going to see a little bit of it, you know, when you open the scrapbook up. So to incorporate that, I took a pencil eraser, a fresh pencil eraser that has, you know, never been used to actually erase. And I have a strip of yellow, this yellow paper, and I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow in this ink pad, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of the orange, sort of blend the two together until I have a color I like. And I'll start here at the top. And I'm going to go ahead and just start punching a pattern out. And I can see already that the size of the dots that I'm creating right now are actually a little bit smaller than the ones that I did on my original band. And I'll bring up, I'm not going to do any more than that. That's enough for you to get the idea. But you would do enough for you to create the band for the whole scrapbook. This then becomes the element that goes here. Now notice the discrepancy between the size dots. This is using a standard, like a number 2 pencil. And if you go to Staples, they also carry these, my dad calls these the oh for Pete's sake size. Anything that's oversized is the oh for Pete's sake size, but this is the primary pencil for the little kids learning to write, and the size pencil eraser for this is what I use to create these larger dots. So once you have whatever size dots you want, then you're going to go back and once again, I'll place adhesive. I'm going to run the adhesive on my vellum strip simply because the yellow strip is narrower than the adhesive, and I don't want it to accumulate on my table. The vellum doesn't want to, for some reason the adhesive, most of the removable adhesives don't stick to the vellum, so it doesn't build up on my table. Now I'm going to start at one end and create this element here, and I would trim off the excess. And then to create the portion in the middle, I started by matting white on top of black. And before I did that, now I'll only take the time to do just a few of these, but in order to get what looks like a black and white stripe, I'm going to make a few of the stripes here, and I'm going to turn this so I can show you making a few of the stripes going the other way. Of course, you would continue doing all 4 edges, so that when I go back and place the white inside here, when I have a fairly even border all the way around, you would of course have this stripe technique all the way around the edges. Now when it's time to create the center portion, I did that with die cuts, and I'll bring these up and show you. Here are 2 that I've already embellished, and here is one with all the raw pieces so that I can show you the steps. I started first by cutting an orange one and then sort of a gold one and even some patterned paper, and I didn't bother to cut the whole pumpkin. I only needed a little chunk because I'm going to just cut this part off and use it for the stem of the pumpkin. Now I decided I did them 2 different ways. I'll show you. In this case, I'm going to trim off the outside edges from the orange so that all that remains is this inner portion. I'm going to take the stem, and I already put adhesive on the back so that I wouldn't lose it as I was putting out my parts and pieces. So it's already got a little bit of adhesive, but of course you turn it over and put a little bit of adhesive on the back, and then I'm going to just cut it out. I'll use the tweezers so you can see around my hands. Because it was cut with a die cut, of course, it's going to line up with the other portion. And then I'm going to layer this on top. Now, I could just attach it like so. If I want to add a little dimension, I can go back and place some foam adhesive on the back and go ahead and attach this to the gold one that's sitting right here. I even have the perforations on the die cut to line that up. So I end up with 3 of the pumpkins that now I'm ready to arrange. I'm going to put, you know, I can put them in all different positions. I'll go ahead and I won't bother to do all of them, but I'll put a few down so you get sort of the idea. I'll put one here. I like having, you know, I think it's kind of fun when one goes off the edge. So if I have one that's sitting, I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on the top of this. So if this is sitting roughly in this position here, I like it when it looks like they just kind of all tumbled together. You'd put more adhesive than this, but this is enough for me to place these layers so you can see them. So then this one I'll have going this direction. So I think I'll move this one just a little bit. So, and then I'll go ahead and I'll trim off. Now I could trim this off so that it aligns with the black border, or I could trim it so that it aligns with the white. Whichever you prefer. So in this case, I've gone right over to the black edge. Let me pull this over and show you. In my first example, I cut it off at the white before attaching it to the black. So you end up with this. The only other area is just where I've taken a little piece of black paper, and with the same white pen I've written pumpkin patch that I would then fasten. I use some foam adhesive to raise it up over this area here. So when you have all those embellished and ready, then you're going to put adhesive on the back and go ahead. Now I would normally, I think that it's, normally I would, you know, decorate the whole cover first, but I've got a little piece of the back that's going to wrap around the front, and it's going to make this, I need to make sure that well, actually, it isn't going to change. It's still, the middle is still going to be the middle. So, because it's still going to show from here to here is the same. So, well, it's like this. I guess I can go ahead and figure out where, when I want to have this look like it's pretty much in the middle. If my checkerboard pattern is even, I could count in how many places I'm going, and that would help. If these were evenly spaced, I could say, okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 oranges. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 oranges. So that's, but this one starts with a different color. So, you know, you can use this as a guide if you've been really good at measuring the background checks. Once you have that placed, notice what happens when this folds over. You're going to see all this. So what I did is I went back and decorated it so that it looks like it matches the actual front cover. So I've got a piece that I'm going to place in this position. Now I didn't bother to trim this. I used a scrap of paper that I had, which was just a little bit too short, but I'm going to be covering it up with these other strips, either the checkerboard strip or that strip that has the dots on it. So at this point, I'm going to add, which way does this go? Let's see, it's this way. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to this top portion. And when it's lined up, so it's going to feel like it's all one. Now what I've got to do here is I need to add, and you know what, I don't have any of it left right now, but the first thing I would do, put in this tiny little piece, just enough for you to get the idea. This needs to be the checker pattern that goes first, and then this yellow, that dot pattern that would go here. So you would add those other elements to completely decorate the rest of this flap that wraps around. Now to bind the book, I'll bring up the pages. If you haven't seen the bird leg bands as binders, oh my gosh, they just cost pennies, and we'll put the link up. Oh, and I'm realizing I haven't gone back and punched that hole out. Remember I said I would do it later, and I haven't done it. So let me go back right now, and I'm going to go ahead and punch out. I'll repunch the hole where I added that border. So now I've got these pages ready to go. So in order to bind them all, I'm going to stack them so that all the holes line up. And I'm going to take the leg bands. And before I stick that in, let me show you, if you haven't already seen, all the choices. Lots of colors, lots of sizes. I even discovered that you can use the permanent pins. In this case, I took one that was white and added, it keeps bouncing around, and added with a black pen, added what feels kind of like the stripes. You can do all kinds of fun things with these. They just cost pennies. We'll put the link up on the website so that if you want to get a bunch of these, they're very inexpensive and I use them all the time. I couldn't manage without them. The way that you attach them is all you do, they're very pliable, so you just separate it out so that you can slide it over the pages, and I'm going to twist it until this lines up with that first hole, and then all I have to do is just give it a swirl and I've attached it. And then I would do the same thing I did actually, I'll bring this up so you can see. I did in the middle an orange one and then another yellow one. They could be all yellow, they could be all orange, they could be all black, they could be all white. All of those colors, it comes in all of those colors. Once you have all of those bound, let's talk about the magnet closure. Now, self-adhesive magnet is easy to come by. You can find it in the big box home improvement stores. You can find it in hardware stores, craft stores. This is self-adhesive, and I've cut it into this little strip, and I'm going to pull this apart so you can see I've got the magnet sides together. So the magnets are stuck together just like so. And this is now the self-adhesive side. What I'm going to do is peel the backing off of just, one of the sides, the front or the back, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, all right, when this closes, this is going to be right about, I want this to be right about here. So I'm going to go ahead and place that magnet right there. Then all I have to do is, and make sure that's going to work. Yep. So I'm going to just peel the backing off of the magnet. It's exposed. I'm going to pull this over, but I want the placement to be where it needs to be when I've got many more pages in here. So I'm going to take some Post-it notes and build up my thickness. What I want to replicate is when I've got this 1/2 inch pretty well situated so that it's going to accommodate the thickness of a 1/2 inch. And I can see that I need, in order for that to happen, I need several in this stack of Post-it notes. That's closer to how thick it's really going to be. So now I'm going to bring this over, make sure that I have all the layers lined up, and then when I press down, now those layers are going to stick together, and see how the Post-it note is making this sit at its proper height. Now when I pull these apart, I have the magnet. I can get those out of there, and if I want this magnet, this particular magnet, to seem like it disappears, I can take my white pen and just go back and continue the white pattern where it sits right over top of the magnet. I wouldn't recommend, I don't know if you had to color a whole lot of the magnet, if the magnet would still be powerful enough to work through the paint. I have a sense that it would, but if you're going to do a really busy pattern, try it first on a little scrap and make sure that it works. Once that dries, then it's going to take a second to dry, but then I'm going to be able to close this up and it will hold all the pages shut. I'll bring the original back up so that you can see just how great that goes together. And then all you need to do then is start creating the inside pages and you're good to go. The theme of today's scrapbook, this one is fall, but it's easy to change the colors and the embellishments so that you can match any theme that you want. Remember, I love hearing your comments. Be sure to share us with your scrapbooking friends. If you haven't already, you might want to sign up for these free weekly videos. And if you want access to all the past episodes and to download the project sheets, then you might want to consider joining the Gold Club. Bye for now.